The Galactic Assembly had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. Hundreds of alien species worked together, shared their knowledge, and built great things across 1,000,000 worlds. They believed they understood everything about war, peace, and power. They believed they had seen every weapon, every strategy, and every type of civilization the universe could produce. Then humanity arrived. The human ship Eternal Dawn came out of faster-than-light travel near Station Korath on a cold morning by Earth time. The station was massive, a spinning wheel of metal and light that held representatives from every major species in the galaxy. Ships of all shapes and sizes moved around it like fish swimming near a reef. Ambassador Yuna stood at the window of her small cabin and watched the station grow larger. She was 34 years old, with black hair tied back and calm eyes that had seen many difficult negotiations on Earth. This was different, though. This was first contact with an entire galaxy of intelligent life. "Ambassador," said Commander Taiho from behind her, "we're receiving docking instructions." Taiho was a military man, tall and serious, with the bearing of someone who had spent 20 years in Earth's space navy. He commanded the small escort fleet that had protected the Eternal Dawn on its long journey. He did not trust aliens. He did not trust anyone, really, except his own crew and his own weapons. "Thank you, Commander," Yuna said. "How do our escorts look?" The Valkyrie sent 6 cruisers to guide us in. Plasma weapons, energy shields, standard configuration. Taiho paused. "They scan us every few minutes. I think they're trying to understand our ships. Let them look. We have nothing to hide." Taiho's jaw tightened, but he said nothing more. The docking process took 2 hours. Alien officials checked their documents, scanned their bodies for diseases, and asked endless questions about human biology, culture, and intentions. Yuna answered everything with patience and grace. She had prepared for this her entire career. Finally, they were allowed into the assembly chamber. The room was enormous, a circular space with seats rising in tiers toward a domed ceiling that showed the stars outside. Hundreds of alien delegates sat in those seats, watching the human delegation enter. Some were tall and thin, others short and wide. Some had scales, others had feathers, and still others had bodies made of living crystal. The variety was overwhelming. Yuna walked to the central platform and faced the High Council, 5 beings who represented the most powerful species in the galaxy. The Valkyrie delegate, Disick, was an insectoid creature with compound eyes and clicking mandibles. He would be the one to question her. "Ambassador Yuna of Earth," Disick said. His voice translated through a small device on his chest. "You come seeking observer status in our assembly. This is unusual. Your species has only traveled between stars for 100 years. Most civilizations wait much longer before making contact. We are eager to learn," Yuna replied, "and eager to share what we know." "Share?" Disick made a sound like dry leaves rustling. Yuna realized this was laughter. "What could your young species possibly teach us?" Yuna did not react to the insult. She had expected this. "We bring cultural exchange, scientific perspectives, and yes, some technologies that may interest you." "Technologies?" Disick looked down at a glowing tablet. "Let us review. Your species still uses chemical fuel for atmospheric vehicles. You have no energy shields. Your faster-than-light drives are inefficient copies of designs we abandoned centuries ago. Your medical science is primitive. He paused, compound eyes focusing on something. "What is this? Electromagnetic acceleration weaponry?" "Railguns," Yuna said simply. "We have used them for 300 years. The chamber fell quiet for a moment. Then Disick's thorax vibrated with that rustling laughter again. "Kinetic weapons. You accelerate metal using magnets and throw it at your enemies. How? Quaint. Several other delegates joined in the laughter. The sound filled the chamber, a mixture of clicks, whistles, and rumbles from dozens of different species. Behind Yuna, Taiho stood perfectly still. His face showed nothing, but his hands had formed fists at his sides. He had commanded the Eternal Dawn's escort through Valkyrie space. He had watched their elegant plasma cruisers drift past with obvious pride in their advanced weapons. He had also spent those long hours calculating exactly what his ship's main battery could do to those cruisers. The results had been interesting, but this was not his moment to speak. He was here as a military advisor, nothing more. So he remained silent and let the aliens laugh. The Assembly grants humanity provisional observer status. This it announced after the laughter died down. You may attend sessions, but you may not vote. You may trade with member species, but you must follow our laws. You may travel through our space, but you must accept our protection. Provisional observer status. Yuna knew what this meant. It was the designation given to primitive species that the Assembly wanted to watch and study. Species that might one day grow up enough to join properly. Species that were not considered real members of galactic civilization. It was an insult dressed in diplomatic language. We accept these terms, Yuna said, her voice steady. And we thank the Assembly for this opportunity. The session ended. The human delegation was escorted back to their ship. They think we are children, Taiho said, once they were alone in the shuttle. Primitives who stumbled into space by accident. They will learn otherwise, Yuna replied. Give them time. Taiho pulled up a tactical display on his personal device. It showed the Valkyrie patrol formation surrounding their small fleet. 6 cruisers, each one bristling with plasma cannons and protected by energy shields. Each one capable of destroying a human ship. Ambassador, every ship out there could kill us. And not one of them considers us a threat. Is that a problem? Taiho looked at her with eyes that had seen too many battles. It will be. For them. The shuttle docked with the Eternal Dawn. Through the windows, the great station of Karth glowed with alien light. Thousands of species lived and worked there, secure in their belief that they understood the universe. They had no idea what was coming. Taiho returned to his command center and began reviewing the intelligence his team had gathered. Shield frequencies, weapon ranges, armor compositions, tactical doctrines. The aliens had been so confident, so certain of their superiority, that they had not bothered to hide their military capabilities. That was a mistake. In the weapons bay of the Eternal Dawn, rows of tungsten slugs sat in their magnetic rails, waiting. Each one weighed 2 kilograms. Each one could be accelerated to 15 kilometers per second. Each one carried no energy signature, no radiation, nothing that an energy shield could detect and stop. The galaxy thought kinetic weapons were primitive. The galaxy thought humans were harmless. The galaxy was wrong. 8 months passed after humanity's arrival at Station Korath. In that time, the humans established a small embassy, learned the basics of galactic trade, and tried to build relationships with other species. Most aliens treated them like curious animals, interesting to look at but not worth taking seriously. Lieutenant Minji did not care what aliens thought of her. She had a job to do. She served aboard the Resolute, a human destroyer assigned to patrol duty in assembly space. The work was boring. Escort missions for cargo ships. Survey flights through empty systems. Paperwork and maintenance and endless hours of nothing happening. Minji preferred it this way. She had joined the Navy to see the stars, not to make friends with creatures who looked down on her species. Let the diplomats worry about respect and status. She would do her duty and wait for the day when humanity proved itself. That day came sooner than anyone expected. The distress call arrived during the night shift. Minji was at her station, monitoring sensor readings, when the emergency channel burst to life with static and screaming. Unknown vessels attacking Relay 7. We need help. They're destroying everything. Please, anyone. The transmission cut off. Captain Junho was on the bridge within minutes, his uniform hastily put on and his eyes sharp despite the late hour. He was 42 years old, a veteran of Earth's border conflicts, and he had the steady calm of a man who had faced death before. Report, he ordered. Relay 7 is under attack, sir, Minji said. 7 civilian ships are trapped there. 1,200 lives. Distance? 40 minutes at maximum speed. The nearest Valkyrie warship is 3 hours away. Junho looked at the tactical display. Relay 7 was a communications hub, important but lightly defended. The assembly had never expected anyone to attack it. They had grown comfortable in their long peace. Sir, the communications officer interrupted. We're receiving orders from Assembly Command. They want us to hold position and wait for Valkyrie reinforcements. Hold position. Junho's voice was flat. While 1,200 people die. Those are the orders, sir. Junho stood silent for a long moment. The bridge crew watched him, waiting. They all knew what the regulations said. They all knew what would happen if they disobeyed direct orders from the assembly. They also knew what kind of man their captain was. Helm, Junho said quietly. Plot intercept course for Relay 7. Maximum speed. Sir, the orders. I heard the orders. Plot the course. The Resolute turned and accelerated into the darkness. They arrived to find chaos. 3 raider ships, unmarked and unknown, were systematically destroying the relay's defense platforms. Plasma fire lit up the void in brilliant flashes of blue and green. The civilian transports huddled behind the station's failing shields, unable to run, unable to fight. One of the raiders noticed the human ship immediately. It broke away from the attack and turned toward the Resolute, weapons charging. The alien crew probably expected easy prey. One small human vessel against a proper warship. This would be quick. Junho watched the raider approach on his display. Range? 18,000 kilometers in closing, Minji reported. Hold fire. The raider accelerated, eager for the kill. Its plasma cannons glowed with building energy. Standard assembly doctrine said to engage at 12,000 kilometers, the optimal range for plasma weapons. 12,000 kilometers. Hold. 10,000. Sir, they're firing. Plasma bolts streaked across space, brilliant and deadly. They struck the Resolute's hull with tremendous force, burning through the outer layers of armor. Warning lights flashed across the bridge. Damage reports flooded in. But the ship did not die. Human vessels did not use energy shields. Energy shields were designed to stop energy weapons, and they worked very well for that purpose. But humans had never developed good energy weapons. Instead, they had developed something else. Armor. Thick, layered, ablative armor that could absorb plasma impacts that would have destroyed a shielded vessel. The Resolute shuddered under the assault, her outer hull glowing red from the heat. But her vital systems remained intact. 8,000 kilometers, Minji said, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. Optimal railgun range. Junho's eyes were ice. All batteries. Fire. The Resolute carried 12 magnetic accelerator cannons. Each one launched a 2-kilogram tungsten slug at 15 kilometers per second. They fired in sequence. A rolling thunder of electromagnetic discharge that lasted less than 2 seconds. 12 slugs crossed 8,000 kilometers in roughly half a second. The Raider's shields detected no energy signature. There was nothing to absorb, nothing to deflect. The slugs were just metal, moving very fast. They punched through the Raider's hull like needles through paper. There was no explosion, not at first. The slugs simply passed through the ship, turning metal into plasma on impact, destroying everything in their path. The Raiders' reactor lost containment a heartbeat later. Then there was an explosion. Minji watched the enemy vessel become a rapidly expanding cloud of debris. She felt nothing. This was war. This was what Railguns did. 2 Raiders remaining, she reported. They're attempting to flee. Pursuit course. Continue firing. The remaining Raiders ran. They made it 9 seconds before the Resolute's secondary batteries found their engines. 9 seconds after that, they were dead. The battle had lasted less than 3 minutes. When the Valkyrie relief force finally arrived, hours later, they found a single human destroyer holding position among the wreckage. The Resolute's hull was scarred and blackened by plasma burns, but she was very much alive. So were the 1,200 civilians she had saved. The investigation began immediately. What weapons did you use? Delegate Disick demanded, reviewing the battle footage in a secure chamber on Station Korath. These readings make no sense. There's no radiation, no energy signature, no kinetic impactors, Commander Taiho explained. He had been summoned to answer questions, and he did so with patient calm. Magnetically accelerated tungsten slugs. We call them railguns. That's impossible. No kinetic weapon could penetrate shields like that. The shields were designed to stop energy. Our weapons carry no energy to stop. Taiho paused, letting the words sink in. Your plasma weapons fire at approximately 8 kilometers per second. Our main battery fires at 15, almost twice the velocity, with projectiles that your shields cannot detect or deflect. Disick's compound eyes stared at him. You're saying your primitive weapons can defeat our advanced defenses? I'm saying exactly that. We tried to tell you 8 months ago, when we first arrived. We showed you our technical specifications. We explained how our weapons worked. Taiho's voice remained calm, but there was steel beneath the surface. Nobody listened. You laughed at us. Double quotes. The chamber fell silent. We tried to tell you, Taiho repeated. You called us primitive. You called our weapons quaint. You gave us observer status, like we were children playing at civilization. He stood. The Resolute saved 1,200 lives today because we ignored your orders and did what needed to be done. Maybe now you'll start taking us seriously. He walked out of the chamber without waiting for permission. Behind him, the delegates began to talk in urgent whispers. The balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted, and they were only beginning to understand how much. The raiders at Relay 7 were not random pirates. The galaxy learned this truth 6 weeks later, when 200 warships appeared from nowhere and began destroying everything in their path. They called themselves the Dominion of Kar. Nobody in the assembly had ever heard of them. They came from the far edges of the galaxy, from regions so distant that no explorer had ever returned with information about them. Their ships were massive, covered in weapons and crewed by beings who knew nothing but war. Their leader, Supreme Commander Varth, broadcast his demands on every frequency. His face appeared on screens across 1,000 worlds, a gray-skinned creature with black eyes and a voice like grinding stone. You will surrender. You will submit. You will serve the Dominion. These are your only choices. Resist, and you will be destroyed. Your worlds will burn. Your species will end. We have conquered 100 civilizations before you. You will be no different. The Assembly had not fought a real war in 4,000 years. They had police actions, of course. Small conflicts between member species. Border disputes and trade wars. But nothing like this. Nothing that threatened the entire galactic order. They had forgotten what true danger looked like. Their response was exactly what anyone would expect from creatures who had grown comfortable in safety. Emergency councils were called. Diplomats were sent to negotiate. Offers of trade and technology were made. Surely the Dominion could be reasoned with. Surely they would accept peaceful coexistence. The Dominion responded by destroying 3 border stations and killing 50,000 people. Ambassador Yuna requested an emergency audience with the High Council. Earth offers military assistance, she announced to the assembled delegates. Her voice was steady, but her eyes showed the strain of watching the assembly fail to act. Our fleet is small, only 16 ships, but our weapons are effective. You saw what happened at Relay 7. Let us help. Delegate Visic's compound eyes studied her. Since the incident at Relay 7, he had stopped laughing at humans. But he was still not convinced. 16 vessels against 200, he said. Ambassador, your courage is admirable, but this is simple mathematics. Your ships would be overwhelmed in minutes. Our mathematics differ from yours. How so? At Relay 7, 1 human destroyer destroyed 3 raiders in under 3 minutes. Our weapons penetrate shields. Our armor absorbs plasma fire. We fight differently than you do, and differently than the Dominion expects. Yuna leaned forward. Let us show you what we can do. The council debated for 3 hours. In the end, they declined. They had their own fleet, after all. 800 warships, gathered from every member species, the largest military force in assembly history. Surely that would be enough. Surely their advanced technology would triumph over these barbaric invaders. Earth's 16 ships were ordered to remain at Station Korath, safely out of the way. The Battle of Korvath Prime began on a Tuesday, by Earth reckoning. The assembly fleet met the Dominion in open space, their plasma cannons blazing in coordinated volleys. 800 ships against 200. The math seemed favorable. The assembly admirals were confident. They were wrong. The Dominion had been fighting wars for centuries. Their shields were stronger, designed through generations of conflict. Their weapons hit harder, refined through countless battles. Their tactics were ruthless and efficient, developed against enemies far more dangerous than the peaceful assembly. The battle became a slaughter. Assembly ships died by the dozens. Their plasma weapons splashed harmlessly against Dominion shields. Their own shields collapsed under concentrated fire. Crews screamed as their vessels broke apart. Escape pods launched into space, only to be destroyed by enemy fighters. 3 hours after the battle began, the assembly fleet was scattered wreckage. 400,000 people died that day. Captain Junho watched the casualty reports from the bridge of the Resolute, his face expressionless. He had been ordered to stay behind, to observe but not participate. He had followed those orders, and it had cost him nothing. It had cost the galaxy everything. Sir, Lieutenant Minji said quietly, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth. On screen. Admiral Goon appeared. She was 56 years old, a hard woman with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. She had commanded Earth's defense forces for 15 years, and she had spent the last 6 months preparing for exactly this moment. All human vessels are hereby placed under my direct command, she announced. The Assembly has requested our assistance. We are to proceed immediately to the Korath system and establish a defensive line. Ma'am, Junho said, the Assembly fleet was destroyed. 800 ships. We have 16. 22. 6 new vessels just completed their construction and are en route now. Doon's expression did not change. I know the numbers, Captain. I also know what our weapons can do. We've run the simulations. We've studied the Dominion's tactics. We have a chance. A chance. That's more than the Assembly has right now. Goon leaned forward. Captain, Station Korath holds the administrative heart of galactic civilization. 3 million people live there. If it falls, the Assembly collapses. The Dominion wins. Everything changes. And we're supposed to stop that with 22 ships. Yes. Goon's voice was iron. We are. Because nobody else can. Because this is what we prepared for. Because humanity does not run. She paused. Captain, I need to know. Are you with me? Jun-Ho thought about the casualty reports. 400,000 dead. The Dominion fleet moving toward Korath. 22 human ships against 50 or more enemy vessels. He thought about Relay 7. 3 raiders destroyed in 3 minutes. I'm with you, Admiral. The Resolute will be at the rendezvous point. Good. Goon out. The screen went dark. Minji looked at her captain. Sir, do we really have a chance? Jun-Ho stood and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Dominion fleet was coming. Somewhere out there, millions of lives hung in the balance. I don't know, he said honestly. But we're going to find out. The Resolute turned toward Korath, her railguns loaded, her crew ready for the fight of their lives. Behind her, 21 other human vessels did the same. The galaxy had ignored humanity's warnings. The galaxy had laughed at their weapons. The galaxy had refused their help until it was almost too late. Now humanity would show them why that had been a mistake. The Dominion fleet arrived at Korath expecting easy conquest. Supreme Commander Vorath had sent 50 ships to take the station. More than enough, he thought. The assembly fleet was destroyed. Nothing remained to oppose him except a handful of primitive human vessels. He had studied the humans, of course. He knew about the incident at Relay 7, but 3 raiders destroyed by surprise meant nothing. His ships were stronger, faster, better armed. The humans would die like all the others. Admiral Goon had different plans. She commanded from the Unyielding, humanity's first true battleship. The vessel was massive by human standards. 300 meters of armor and weapons built specifically for this kind of war. She carried 36 main railguns, each one capable of launching 10-kilogram tungsten slugs at 20 kilometers per second. The other 21 human ships gathered around her, hiding in the shadow of Korath's largest moon. They ran silent, their engines cold, their weapons powered but not active. From a distance, they looked like asteroids. All captains, final briefing. Goon broadcast on the encrypted channel. The faces of her commanders appeared on her display. Captain Jun-Ho of the Resolute. Captain Hyan of the Dauntless. Captain Su of the Steadfast. 22 ships, 22 captains, all of them ready to fight against impossible odds. The Dominion fights the way the Assembly did, Goon explained. Standoff engagements. Shield-to-shield combat. They sit at long range and pound each other until someone's shields fail. That's how they beat the Assembly fleet. She paused. We're not going to fight like that. Then how are we fighting, Admiral? Hyan asked. Close, fast, brutal. Goon's eyes were hard. The Dominion has never faced an enemy like us. They don't understand kinetic weapons. They don't know how to defend against them. We're going to use that. She pulled up a tactical display. When they entered the system, we hit them from behind the moon at full speed. No warning, no negotiation. We close to point-blank range, and we keep firing until they break. Point-blank range means we'll take heavy casualties, Jun-Ho observed. Yes, we will. Goon did not flinch from the truth. Some of us will die today. But if we don't stop them here, everyone on Korath dies instead. 3 million people. That's the math. Silence on the channel. Any questions? There were none. Then get to your stations. We engage in 20 minutes. The Dominion fleet entered the system in standard formation. Capital ships in front, escorts on the flanks, fighters deployed in neat geometric patterns. Their shields glowed with confident energy. Their weapons were charged and ready. They expected nothing. The human fleet burst from behind the moon like predators from ambush. 22 ships accelerating at maximum thrust, heading straight for the enemy formation. The Dominion commander barely had time to react. Unknown contacts. All ships, defensive formation. Target those. The Unyielding's main battery fired. 36 railguns spoke at once. 360 kilograms of tungsten crossed 20,000 kilometers in 1 second. The slugs hit the Dominion flagship with the force of small nuclear explosions. Shields meant nothing. The projectiles carried no energy to absorb. They were just metal, moving at impossible speed, and they tore through the enemy vessel like knives through flesh. The flagship shattered. All ships, Goon ordered. Continue advance. Target their command vessels. Don't let them organize. The battle became chaos. Dominion plasma cannons opened fire, filling space with blue-green death. Human ships burned under the assault. The Valiant lost her forward section in the first exchange. The Defiant took a direct hit to her bridge, killing her captain instantly. But the human fleet did not stop. They closed the range, getting closer and closer, trading armor for position. At 5,000 kilometers, their railguns became even more devastating. At 2,000 kilometers, they were unstoppable. Lieutenant Minji worked her targeting console with steady hands, feeding coordinates to the Resolute's gunners. Her screen showed enemy vessels as red icons, each one representing thousands of tons of hostile metal and hundreds of enemy crew. One icon disappeared. Then another. Then 5 more. Cruiser bearing 047, range 3,000. She called out. I see it, the weapons officer replied. Firing. The railguns thundered. The cruiser died. Captain Junho stood at the center of the chaos, his voice calm despite the hell around him. Damage reports flooded in. Hull breaches on decks 3, 7, and 12. Fire in the engine room. 30 crew dead, 60 wounded, but the ship still flew. The guns still fired. Captain, Minji shouted. The Dauntless is in trouble. Junho looked at his display. The Dauntless was drifting, her engines dark, surrounded by 3 enemy vessels. Captain Hyon's voice crackled over the radio, broken by static and pain. We've lost propulsion. Can't evade. Taking heavy fire. Helm, intercept course for the Dauntless, Junho ordered. All batteries concentrate fire on her attackers. The Resolute turned toward her sister ship. The railguns spoke again, destroying one enemy vessel, then another. The third tried to flee. It didn't make it, but the Dauntless was already dying. Her hull cracked open, spilling atmosphere and crew into the void. Her reactor went critical. She exploded in a flash of white light. Captain Hyan had been a friend. Junho did not have time to mourn. Next target. Keep firing. The battle raged for 2 hours. Human ships died. The Steadfast was rammed by a Dominion cruiser and broke in half. The Hammer fought until her railguns melted from overuse, then charged the enemy flagship and detonated her reactor in its face. The Shield held the line until she had nothing left, her crew fighting fires and loading guns until the very end. But the Dominion died faster. Their shields were useless. Their tactics were wrong. They had never faced an enemy who fought like this, who got close and stayed close, who traded damage for kills and never stopped advancing. When the surviving Dominion vessels finally turned and ran, they left 37 wrecks behind them. Humanity had lost 4 ships, 400 crew, friends and comrades who would never go home. But 18 ships remained, and the line had held. Admiral Goon stood on the bridge of the Unyielding, her face streaked with soot and blood from a console explosion. She had a broken rib and a gash across her forehead, but she was still standing. Message to Supreme Commander Vorath, she broadcast on open frequencies. This is Admiral Goon of the Earth Defense Force. The line at Korath is held. Send more ships if you wish. We'll destroy them too. Across the galaxy, beings who had dismissed humanity as primitive watched the battle, recordings in stunned silence. The humans had done the impossible, and they were just getting started. The war lasted 14 months. Supreme Commander Vorath was not a being who accepted defeat easily. He had conquered 100 civilizations across the galaxy's far reaches. He had broken empires and enslaved entire species. One lost battle meant nothing to him. He sent reinforcements. More ships, more soldiers, more weapons. The Dominion fleet at Karth grew from 50 ships to 70, then to 90. They adapted their tactics, trying to counter the human weapons. They built new shields, new armor, new strategies. None of it worked. Admiral Goon had spent her entire career studying warfare. She knew that winning one battle meant nothing if you could not win the war. So while the Dominion rebuilt their fleet, she rebuilt hers. Earth's shipyards worked without stopping. Day and night, workers assembled new vessels. Engineers designed better railguns, faster projectiles, stronger armor. Scientists developed new targeting systems that could track enemy ships through any interference. 40 human ships became 60. 60 became 100. And the assembly finally began to listen. Delegate Disick visited the Unyielding 3 months after the Battle of Korath. He walked through the ship's corridors with compound eyes that missed nothing, studying the weapons, the armor, the crew. "Your railgun designs," he said to Admiral Goon when they finally sat down to talk. "The assembly wishes to discuss sharing arrangements." Goon looked at him with tired eyes. She had not slept more than 4 hours a night since the war began. "Interesting. A year ago, you called our weapons quaint. We were wrong." "Yes, you were." Disick's mandibles clicked in the Velkari equivalent of a sigh. "Admiral, I will speak plainly. The Assembly has never faced a threat like the Dominion. Our weapons do not work against them. Our tactics do not work against them. Only your ships have achieved victory." He paused. "We need your help. Not as observers, as partners." Goon studied him for a long moment. She thought about all the insults humanity had endured. The laughter, the dismissal, the refusal to take them seriously until it was almost too late. She also thought about the 3 million people on Station Korath who were alive because her ships had held the line. She thought about the assembly species who would be enslaved if the Dominion won. She thought about what kind of galaxy humanity would inherit if they let their allies fall. "We'll share the technology," she said finally, "and we'll train your crews to use it. But from now on, humanity has a voice in assembly military decisions. Equal voice. Full partnership." Disick agreed immediately. The combined fleet launched its offensive 6 months later. 120 human vessels led the way, their railguns loaded and their crews ready. Behind them came 400 assembly ships, hastily retrofitted with kinetic weapon systems. The technology was new to them, but they learned quickly. They had excellent motivation. The Dominion fought back with everything they had. Vorath threw ship after ship at the advancing fleet, trying to stop the advance, trying to break the enemy's will. His species had never lost a war. They did not know how to surrender. The combined fleet taught them. Battle after battle, system after system, the Dominion fell back. Their shields were useless. Their tactics failed. For the first time in their long history, they faced an enemy who could hurt them, who would not stop, who came for them with weapons they could not counter. The final battle occurred in Dominion space itself. Admiral Goon led the fleet to the enemy homeworld. 520 ships against the last 300 Dominion vessels. It was the largest space battle in galactic history. It lasted 6 hours. At the end, Supreme Commander Vorath's flagship drifted alone among the wreckage of his fleet. His shields were gone. His weapons were destroyed. His crew was dead or dying. The unyielding close to 800 meters. Close enough that Goon could see the enemy bridge through her display. Close enough to finish it with a single shot. "Admiral," Captain Junho said from beside her, "Your orders?" Goon looked at the broken vessel. Broken vessel? She thought about all the people who had died in this war. Her crew, her friends. 4 ships at Korath. Thousands of assembly citizens. The toll had been terrible. But she also remembered something her grandfather had told her years ago on Earth. The measure of civilization is not how we treat our friends. It is how we treat our enemies when they are beaten. "Open a channel," she said. "Channel open. Supreme Commander Vorath. This is Admiral Goon of the Earth Defense Force. Your fleet is destroyed. Your homeworld is surrounded. You have lost." She paused. "Surrender now, and your people will be treated with dignity. Continue fighting, and they will be destroyed. The choice is yours." Silence stretched across the void. Then Voritha's voice came through the speakers, broken and tired. "I accept your terms." The Treaty of Korath was signed 3 months later. The Dominion agreed to withdraw from assembly space forever. They agreed to pay compensation for the damage they had caused. They agreed to limit their military forces and submit to inspections. In return, they were allowed to survive. Ambassador Yuna represented Earth at the signing ceremony. She stood in the same chamber where humanity had been laughed at, where they had been given observer status like children at an adult's table. But things were different now. Beside her stood Admiral Goon, Captain Junho, Lieutenant Minji, and the surviving crews of the original 16 ships. Heroes of the Assembly. Saviors of galactic civilization. "The galaxy owes you a debt," High Counselor Aldrich said, his crystalline form pulsing with genuine respect. "You warned us about your weapons. You offered to help us prepare. We did not listen. That was our mistake." Yuna looked at her military colleagues, at the men and women who had held the line when it seemed impossible. She thought about all the species who had looked down on humanity, who had called them primitive, who had laughed at their technology. "Then listen now," she replied. "Humanity is not special because we have better weapons. We are special because when we saw danger coming, we prepared for it. We did not assume peace would last forever. We did not trust that the universe would be kind to us." She paused. "The galaxy is vast, Counselor. There are threats out there we have not imagined yet. Next time, perhaps we should face them together. As equals." The chamber fell silent. Then, slowly, the delegates began to signal their agreement. A ripple of approval spread through the assembly, species after species, world after world. For the first time in 12,000 years, the vote was unanimous. Humanity was granted full membership in the Galactic Assembly. Not observer status. Not provisional status. Full membership, with full voting rights and full respect. Admiral Goon watched the ceremony with quiet satisfaction. Her ships had held the line. Her crews had paid the price. And now humanity would take its rightful place among the stars. Later, as she walked back to her shuttle, Minji fell into step beside her. "Admiral, do you think they've really learned? Do you think they'll listen to us now?" Dun smiled slightly, the first smile anyone had seen from her in months. "They're listening now, Lieutenant. That's what matters." She looked up at the stars, visible through the station's windows. "And if they forget again, we'll remind them. That's what humanity does. We survive. We adapt. We fight." She stepped onto the shuttle. "And we never ever stop." The galaxy had laughed at humanity's weapons. The galaxy had ignored every warning. The galaxy had learned, in blood and fire, why that was a mistake. Now they would never forget. The stars waited ahead, full of dangers unknown and wonders undiscovered. humanity would face them all, together with the galaxy that had finally learned to listen.